So what does Artemis II, going beyond the moon, a space launch 54 years in the making, have anything to do with what you're going through right now? Because the astrology of this launch tells a story, and that story, it's about you. Welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Jennifer, and I'm here to help you during your spiritual awakening and help you change how you see everything. So once I heard that Artemis II took flight to the moon, I went back and I looked at a few major space milestones, because guess what? The cosmos don't lie. So the first one that I noticed was Apollo 8, and that happened in 1968. That was a milestone because the first humans to orbit it was the first time humans orbited around the moon. And I noticed in the chart of that specific launch date, the moon was trining Pluto. Okay, so the next kind of milestone after that was, well, there were several, but one that I noticed that was pretty imperative or important was Apollo 17, and that happened in 1972. And why is that one important? Because it was the last time humans went to the moon, and that was 54 years ago. And guess what? The moon was in transit with Pluto again, but this time it was a square. And so what does a square mean in astrology? It means tension, possibly an ending. And I kind of consider it from that point on a dark ages for moon flight, to land on the moon. And after this, the space exploration kind of went quiet. So it kind of proved the square. It was a friction and a stagnation when it came to adventuring to the moon. And what made the Artemis II interesting is it happened on April 1st of this year, 2026. And again, in the launch chart, the moon was trining Pluto again. So it was the same kind of harmonic aspects as Apollo 8, the first times human orbited around the moon. And I was like, wow. So that kind of means that there was a new opening. But this time, we were going beyond the moon for the first time ever. And I found that really exciting. But guess what? Now there's a third layer to add to that. So when I noticed all these launch charts together, I also noticed that Neptune was sextiling Pluto. And so what makes that aspect interesting is that it's a generational transit, which means that we all feel that one collectively. So starting in the 1950s, Neptune sextiling Pluto has happened multiple times, but it kind of goes in and out. So there's times where Neptune and Pluto sextile each other, and then they come to an exact sextile. And then they kind of go out beyond about 2 degrees apart. And we had not been experiencing like that approaching sextile for a while now. And guess what? This year, 2026, Neptune and Pluto started sextiling each other again this year. So what does Neptune mean? It kind of means it dissolves the boundaries. It dissolves what we think is impossible. And Pluto in the chart, what does that mean? It means it destroys what no longer belongs. So it's kind of interesting. And it's just really interesting to know that 1968, 1972, and now 2026, this isn't a coincidence. You know, it's just odd that this is the same cosmic fingerprint 54 years later from 1972. So it just goes to show that the universe isn't subtle. So I find it really interesting, and what I find really important is that, yeah, you may be thinking Artemis II, it's really interesting. It's going beyond the moon, first time ever. But I see these things a little bit differently. To me, what is happening out there is happening in here. So what does the moon mean in astrology? It's your inner world. It's your instincts, your habits, what makes you feel safe. And Pluto because like I mentioned in those launch charts, Pluto means, like I said earlier, like the death or the renewal of something. So Pluto was kind of essentially knocking on the door of this experience that we are having collectively right now. And so Pluto, one thing about it is like, Pluto doesn't ask you, hey, do you want to transform? No, it's going to make you transform no matter what. And so because it was hitting on the moon, it's kind of shedding old patterns, old attachments, old versions of safety that were never really keeping you safe. And then Neptune adds that dreamy layer. It's like the magic. I always think Neptune is the magic planet of the zodiac. It makes things that are subconscious kind of dissolves in between there and makes it conscious. So it's about like a boundary between what's possible and what's not. And that line in between there, that's the illusion. So we are being asked right now to go beyond our own personal meaning of the moon, beyond what feels familiar, beyond what feels comfortable, into the dark side, the unexplored part of ourselves. And it's just amazing how this energy really pushed that forward. It's very interesting. So now I ask you, where in your life are you stopping yourself from making your dreams come true? Because this is essentially what, if we're going to think about this metaphorically, we're going beyond the moon. We're going, for the first time ever, the farthest place we could ever go into space. It is only the beginning. And I see that as for ourselves as well, here on Earth. Because we have to keep one foot here on Earth and one foot out there. So don't forget that. What is stopping you from following your dreams? So remember, the boundary between possible and impossible is just an illusion. And don't forget that. And so for those of you who want to go a little bit deeper, look at your transit chart for April 1st. So there was a full moon in Pisces, and Pluto is currently in Aquarius. And that day, Pluto and the moon were training each other. What houses in your chart do those fall? That kind of gives you a clue or a personal message of what this energy is trying to teach you right now. So when NASA says Artemis II is going beyond the moon for the first time since Apollo 17 in 1972, the astrology confirms what we already know and what we already feel. This is not just a rocket launch. It's a threshold. So don't forget that. All right. So remember, lovelies, each layer you uncover changes how you see everything. And I'll catch you next time. Much love. Bye.